Alright, what's up, Patreon? Seth here. Kind of my daily update in Guam. We got here bright and early. You can see the sun is just now coming up. We went to crank engines and we had a start valve fail on this engine, the number 4 engine right here. So these engines, just to tell you a little bit about kind of these turboprop engines. This is an AE 2100 D3. We've got 4 of these obviously in the J. And instead of using a typical starter like you'd have in a piston, we use bleed air. So that's just high pressure air to spin the turbine section. Now there's a start valve in this engine that allows that air to go into the compressor section and spin the turbines, and that failed to close. And so if we try to operate the engine with that start valve open, it could create a fire hazard. It's not good. So that's actually a master warning, so we had to pull the fire handle to shut down the engine during the start. It's kind of something that's pretty rare. You only run into these in like CRM sims. A CRM sim is like your annual training, and you'll get in the sim and have all sorts of start failures and stuff. So this isn't something that happens normally. So we got here bright and early at like 5 in the morning to go fly a few times over to Baker LZ, which is also called Northfield on the island of Tinian. It's pretty cool to go there because that's actually the place where the Enola Gay and Boxcar took off on their nuclear missions out to Japan during World War II. So we're getting to land there. That's pretty cool. So we're broke now. We'll see if we can get fixed in the next few hours and take back off and get some of our mission done. See ya.
All right, welcome back, Patreon, for our second update here at Guam. This will probably be second to the last, but obviously we were able to get fixed. It did take about 3 hours to fix that start valve problem. We were able to get all the engines started, and we uploaded an aero medical evacuation team. This was made up of U.S. and Australian personnel for this exercise. We were integrating with them. So we have a crew of 11 doctors and nurses in the back with, I think we had 20 simulated patients. So the back of our plane is basically a flying hospital right now, with cots and medical equipment everywhere. And they've got volunteers from, around the exercise that are pretending to be injured and sick and all that. So we're taking them to Baker LZ. It's that small LZ we went to in the last episode. You can just see there were actually 4 ship of 4 F-16s taken off before us, so we had to hold on them a little bit. This is my leg, so I'm doing the takeoff out of Anderson Air Force Base here, and I'm going to be doing the landing at Baker LZ. So something interesting you can see right in front of me on my main display, I've got my my primary flight display pulled up, and my HUD is pushed forward. There you go. I pull the HUD back, and I press a button, and I turn my map on. What I was doing there, that's a habit pattern I have, is we were cleared to line up and wait. And when we're cleared to line up and wait, I push the HUD forward as a visual cue to remind me of, hey, we're not cleared for takeoff. I only am cleared for takeoff when I can see the HUD symbology. And so when I pull the HUD back to it activates it, and I have to turn my PFD off and turn it to the radar page. So that's just a small habit pattern that I have to remind myself that we're not cleared for takeoff. There's just a normal rotation. We're about 140,000 pounds, I think. No, 135,000 pounds taking off. So we weren't extremely heavy. I think our rotation speed was around 100 and 15 knots, 120 knots, somewhere around there. I switch over to the nose view as the primary here as we take off, because Guam is just beautiful. It's just a really pretty place to fly around. Scenery's great. As we're flying back, we are on an IFR flight plan, even though this was really nice weather today. We climbed up to 9,000 feet and are on an IFR flight plan. Now, it's interesting, we filed IFR to Tinian, but we weren't actually planning on landing at Tinian. So this is something that we do in the Air Force a lot. We'll file to a location where we don't actually plan on going. And what we're going to do is we're going to cancel IFR before we get to our destination. and then start VFR flying to a different field. So that's what we were doing here, is we filed IFR to Tinian, and then we canceled IFR somewhere around here and started our approach into Northfield, which is on the island of Tinian, but it's not the airport of Tinian. So that's a little behind the scenes of how we're making this mission plan. So you can see Baker LZ just off the nose there. Pretty standard approach that I did here is just called it a tactical straight in, and did a minimum slowdown for kind of my practice there. Now, as I've got some slow motion clips on this video to show the aim point a little bit better. So you're going to see 4 orange boxes, and that's what I'm aiming for. That's my first 500 feet of my usable runway, and I want to touch down in that first 500 feet. So you maybe saw the last ones there. Here on the slow motion version, you can see the orange come up a little bit better there. So my wheels were right at the beginning, my main wheels, and then my nose wheel came down right at the end of the zone. And then I go into reverse. Now, since I don't have the nose wheel tiller, the left seat pilot, the pilot will take over the throttles when I come out of reverse. And so I give her the throttles just out of reverse. She actually left the throttles in reverse a little too long, though, and you'll see what happens here. Just momentarily, we get a dust cloud that builds up, and that's our engines are pulling all the dirt and trash in front of the plane because we left the engines in reverse just slightly too long. And that's kind of called a brownout. You can see some pictures of that happening online. There's some C-130s. I think if you just Google search, C-130 dirt landing, you'll see a famous picture. Well, it's famous to us hurt guys. You'll see the nose of a C-130 just sticking out of the front of a brown cloud of dust, and that's because they left it in there too long. At any rate, we stayed on the ground about an hour and a half. We had some DVs that we dropped off that were visiting this, and then our aeromedical evacuation team simulated, downloading and uploading more patients, and we did a 180-degree turn at the end of the runway and are ready for takeoff. In this case, the left seat, the pilot, is going to take the takeoff. I'll be pilot monitoring. Again, this is kind of short field takeoff procedures. So there she set full power, holding the brakes. She releases the brakes. I say hack. Again, I'm looking for 80 knots at 13 seconds in this case. So as we're tracking down the runway, we're scanning everything. She gives a cool pilot peace sign to the operators. I thought that was funny. We reach our acceleration time checkpoint. We're good to go. Rotate. And as you'll see from... actually, I don't have the nose camera on here, but we took off with probably 1,000 feet of runway remaining. So I think our ground roll in this case was around 1,800 feet. At any rate, my front camera actually died somewhere around here, and so I didn't have any more recordings of that, so just some cockpit footage here. And then I put the main camera out front. Here's Goat Island again. Again, didn't see any goats, looked for them. But the pilot was flying back. This is all just a lot of time lapse. So just some, pretty ocean water. We flew back at a little higher altitude. I think we went up to 5,000 feet on this trip rather than staying down low level. And then started getting vectored around by Guam Center for the approach back into Anderson Air Force Base. You can kind of see on my nav radar display kind of where we're at. There's the island of Rota that we're passing by just to our left. And then we're going to get a vector around, and you can see kind of our white lines there, or they're actually cyan and white lines that are painting our straight-in approach that we're going to do into Anderson. It was another beautiful weather day, so we were able to do we still didn't run out of approach. We got through kind of a scattered to broken layer of clouds, but broke out relatively high. So we really didn't have to fly it all the way down to minimums. But as you can see, we're going through some patchy clouds there that made it a little more challenging. When we landed, I'll give kind of a debrief the day of when we land. But we've got this aeromedical crew on board. Now, we've already been operating for maybe, I think about 10 hours at that point from the time that we showed up to the airplane. Well, the Air Force says we can only do tactical duties for a maximum of 12 hours. So we only had about 2 hours left of our tactical duty day. And by the time we offloaded all of the aeromedical folks to reconfigure the plane for palletized cargo or rolling stock, we would have only had about an hour of tactical duty day left. And that's just not enough time to fly up to Baker LZ and offload and turn around. We would have been out of TAC duty day, and that's basically not legal for us to fly. So we wound up calling it a day after just one trip up to Baker LZ, which I was a little disappointed I didn't get to land there more. I got a couple of landings there, I think maybe 3 total. But I got to go there, so I was thankful for that. But it takes probably 3 hours or so, 2 to 3 hours for the aeromedical crew to download everything, because there's just a lot of reconfiguration that has to happen, a lot of stanchions and seats, and we have to wait on the ambulance, and they're doing this all training. We didn't have any actual patients on board, but it's really important that they train like they actually operate. So they weren't skipping because it was just training. They were going through the whole process, and it takes sometimes a couple hours to download everything. So that's why we wound up having a shorter day, even though we still were in the plane for about 11 hours.
We were able to get started. We did our day. I got some good video. Hopefully you can hear me. I don't know how good this mic is. We're back here at Anderson, and we're out of crew day, which means basically we can do tactical duties until 4:30 this afternoon. It's already 2 o'clock. So by the time we could load up with more stuff and go to LZ, we'd be out of TAC day. So we're done. So I hope you enjoy the video.
All right, thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting. I'll talk to you later.